Welcome back once again to the Writer Brothers, your Thursday night source for general interest entertainment, where we discuss movies, games, shows, and occasionally even books. But don't worry, we're not going to bore you with any books tonight. This evening, we're going to discuss the latest episode of Apple TV's Severance. After that, we will talk about Daily Wire's latest and greatest, The Hyperions. Then we're going to discuss a little bit of GTA Online, and then our first impression of Black Desert Online. Today, I'm joined by my co-host slash co-producer, John. How are you doing today?
Absolutely wonderful. Happy Thursday to you, or as they say in olden times, happy Thorsday. I cannot wait to get into these conversations tonight.
I prefer Turds Day myself because it feels like a turd, and I just took a turd earlier and before the show, so I'm ready to go.
That's enough potty talk out of you.
No more bodily function discussion on this show. So Severance, episode 5. John, where do you want to start with this one?
I'm gonna let you open because I want to hear your thoughts. I thought this one was wild, but I felt like you had a different relationship with this one.
I was so my theories definitely changed a bit. I have a simpler feeling on this one regarding where the show's going and what it's doing. I paused it so right after the scene where I can't remember his name. It's like Ivan or Ivory.
Irving,
thank you. Yeah, he's got one of those names that always sounds different in my head. Where Irving gets that picture, that was a moment that I was like, I paused the show and I looked at Hannah and I go, okay, if everything that we have watched builds up to this, just them being rats in a maze, it will still be worth watching. And literally right after I started watching the show again, that's when the other character comes in, or goes to Patricia Arquette's character, and then says, that's when they have a little bit of a weird conversation where she says something along the lines of, "Oh, you ran a 256 on
Milacek, yes."
And I was like, "Yeah, it was Milacek." And I was like, "Oh, so they are just doing experiments on them." And I found that, like, I was blown away by how much they kind of did a lot more exposition in this one, but also kept the suspense than I was expecting.
I got a different feeling from that scene. I didn't really feel like it was an experiment so much as a test. Like, A, it's number 256 of what? And B, I really want to know of what, because that's a really messed up 256, and to see our first introduction into it, you know, with that picture going crazy. I couldn't get over how grotesque it was, but also how historic, I guess would be the best word for it. Like, it was not a standard water painting, and it kind of explained what we discussed last week, like, why are the computers so old, right? Well, if you're gonna keep paintings like this, they're going to start to quantify the difference and you see it later in the episode when he shows them the one where the badges are different. Like, one's the MacDot group and one's the painting group. And the MacDot group were like, no, the painting group was the one that was attacking us in the picture that I saw. That's what Irving saw. But then when Irving's looking at the other one, it's the MacDot group attacking the painting group. So when they say it's a 256, I didn't really see it as an experiment so much as like a psychological test. Like, they wanted to see if he was going to, I don't know. Like, I based off the scenes where Irving just sees the world melting, I got the vibe that he's either getting ready to be forcibly retired, or he is, back to the experiment thing again now. He could be the first of the guinea pigs, and like, he's having the most residual effects, whereas everybody else has never seen the sky melt. Especially that scene where Mark turned around and his eye was like oozing that black stuff. that one made me queasy immediately because I didn't expect it. Like, I thought seeing Mark's normal face was what would be the thing that snapped him out, and it wasn't. And I was like, that's gross.
Well, the painting sequence was very... Maybe there was more there that we missed, because the painting sequence, he reacts to the first one, and then we find out that it was intentionally sent to him. Like he has a visible, disturbing reaction. But then he sees this, and he's like, "Oh, calm down, Dylan. This isn't the same thing. It's different." And he doesn't even react the same. He doesn't even react similar. He's literally very nonchalant about it. Like, dude, it's no big deal.
That's such a good point.
Yeah, and so it's almost like there was something maybe subliminal in that first message that was accidentally sent to him, and he just didn't understand it. It was something in that first image triggered something that was not triggered here. Yet when Dylan saw this other picture, he was the one that was bothered by it and was like, "See, they got the same image. It's right here." And Irving's like, "No, it's not the same image. It's different."
Well, and not to mention, like, Irving was not only visibly, like, distraught by what he was seeing, but he kind of felt like he caused it because he tried to print the map. But if you notice, now that we're bringing up all these things about, like, what we could have missed, there was 2 pictures printed, and Milicek only took one of them, but they were both the same photo. So what if printing the map, and, like, these printers have some kind of, like, scan before you print function that can detect what you're about to print and deny you and print you something else? Like, what if it wasn't, the 256 was triggered by Milicek, but also by the photo he attempted to copy, because it was the map that they were keeping hidden in secret. But, like, to me, that was the first thing that scared him. Like, oh, I didn't print this. Oh, that's really gross. And then Milicek just comes up behind him, and he's like, he's still, like, disturbed, and it seemed like he forgot about the map. So
yeah,
all of those pieces feel like there's so much more that we saw, but didn't add up until the next episode, and then maybe even the rewatch we'll be able to finally put all these lines together.
Yeah, Super Gamecraft in the chat with some Canadian flags. Which does bring up a interesting point. Unfortunately, our guest tonight, Carry On, Witch in Residence, was unable to join us due to don't know the specifics, just some family circumstance. So just a quick shout out to our buddy Carry On. Well wishes. Hope everything gets resolved. And we'll hope to see you back here next week. Yeah, I honestly, a lot of what was going on in this episode certainly raised a bunch more questions and definitely gives the illusion that something is clearly going on that we're not being told about. I mean, that's pretty much the whole show, but it's almost
Seriously.
Like, I think it's going to be somewhere in between what Carry On's suggesting with it's something that could be a gray area. And that's very possible, but it's also entirely possible that whatever the gray area is, it's just going to be achieved through random experimentation of humans, and that's what they're doing. It is a psychological experiment on the human brain. Is basically what this show is about in a lot of ways. I mean, it's about a lot of things. There's a lot of commentary to pull from this show. But what I found interesting was also the scene where Mark goes and grabs his book out, and Milicek was over his shoulder. And it's like, he saw him with the book. But he didn't.
That wasn't Milicek, that was the counselor.
Or that's right, it was the counselor. I got my sequences confused. Okay, but she clearly saw it from her vantage point, okay? That's like literally one of those movie magic moments that is so painfully obvious. There's no way that she didn't notice the book was there, but obviously didn't do anything about it because they left it for him to find. That's my point about why I think why ultimately, at the very least, that's where the show started, was rats in a maze. And how do we make humans participate willingly as rats in a maze? Oh, well, you make them forget that they don't work for 8 hours a day, or that they work for 8 hours a day. You make them forget that experience, then you can do whatever you want. That's why we see messed up things like the break room, because they're trying to control people without having to physically abuse them. It's all mental abuse. It's all mind games. And that's really what makes this show so riveting, is that, there's no violence. I mean, there's like, I guess, mild violence when Helly threw the thing at Mark in the first episode. But that's it. There's no grotesque violence. There's no, they kind of swear a lot, but it's very calculated. Super Gamecraft the chat. Mental abuse is common. We all work day jobs.
That's a good point.
This show amplifies it by a factor of 11.
One question I have for you is, why do you feel like you are what's the word I'm looking for? Do you feel like you're actually learning more as we watch? Do you feel like you know more about the world?
Honestly, I do not. I think there's more questions.
Not really think, but feel. Like watching it, do you feel like you can remember last week's episode and feel like you're getting questions answered even though you're getting more questions?
Yeah, I feel like it's doing a good job of giving us a little bit more into the insight, but then it's also like feeding us more cliffhangers. Like the data entry room, they literally all went in there, and they're going to meet the people, and we'll see how that interaction goes tonight. And so it's doing a very good job narratively of giving us enough information to keep us interested. But then, but what's interesting is to see what's going to happen next, because, I don't want to see spoilers off the IMDb, so never mind. I'm not going to go that route.
That's what I really think is what makes this show such a good show, is because I feel like I know I don't know anything, even though I've watched 5 episodes in a row trying to figure everything out, and I watch them a couple times to be ready for these episodes for our show, and yet I don't feel cheated, but I only feel completely more in the dark. And that's such a fun feeling to get from watching something, especially lately, because it feels like it's been rare where a TV show especially has been able to be as adventurous as The Office while simultaneously making me as confused and ready for the next episode as Game of Thrones.
Right. Right.
And it's a weird spot to be.
Well, and I mentioned it on previous episodes, and I definitely kind of have that sort of fear in the back of my mind that this show is just going to turn out to be more mystery box writing, but that's just it. It doesn't feel like it's doing heavy on the mystery box, as it feels like it's definitely using mystery box writing to keep you interested, but it's also giving more insight to the characters and to the world that you don't really get that with mystery box writing. Mystery box writing just gets more and more mysterious, and then by the end of like a season, you're like, so what exactly happened? And you ask the producers, and they go, well, what do you think's going to happen? And then they have like a notepad, and they're like, just wanted to write down your notes so they can produce season 2.
I don't get that vibe.
I don't know. Game of Thrones put me in a freaking coma. I need to censor the Twitter or the Twitch chat.
What I mean more along the lines of Game of Thrones is I didn't watch it week to week because it's a very slow drumming show, but in terms of who started what and why, literally in the first episode of Game of Thrones, you learn the entire goals of everybody, except you just don't think that they're going to be that obvious. And then as you watch the show, it doesn't match at all as episode 1. It also doesn't match Lord of the Rings. It also doesn't match any other fantasy genre you've ever seen before.
It matches Lord of the Rings. They killed Sean Bean.
Yeah, but Sean Bean was killed at the
for Game of Thrones
end.
Season 1, if they're like one of the 3 people who hasn't watched that show.
Yeah, they basically did. I mean, if you were to put the 2 timelines in just order of events, Sean Bean dying at the end of each episode was the major climax.
Let's not get too off track here. I think the point you're trying to make is, at least with Game of Thrones, like the first couple seasons are admittedly well written and well thought out.
No,
and that's
the real point I'm just trying to make is that the Game of Thrones series sparked so many film and fan theory websites, podcasts, YouTube channels, and you're absolutely right, because Lost did the same thing and lost it in the end. And same thing happened with Game of Thrones, is they lost it, because Game of Thrones, like George R.R. Martin wasn't done. He was still finishing out his vision, sussing some things out, and then some other people just took the helm as fans. Like, they were fans writing fanfic, and they wrote their version of a good ending, and that's why the majority of us didn't like it, and that's where Lost itself, and that's where this one is doing itself a service, because it doesn't exist anywhere except for the next episode and the last episode. It doesn't have a book to follow, and as far as we know, it may not even care about season 2. And that's wild.
I don't know how this season's going to end. There's scenes in here that we haven't even gotten to, and there's implications of what this show is implying that we haven't touched on. And that's really what I'm liking about it a lot, is it's doing a good job of giving us the mystery, but also enough satisfying resolution each week that we want to come back for more, but we don't feel. I haven't felt insulted by this show, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't feel like anybody of any real intelligence range is going to feel inadequate. Like, some people might feel lost more than others, but it's not a hard one to follow once you grasp the basic concept.
No,
and I think that's what I like about it, is it tries to be respectful of its audience. It's just trying to tell a story. It's not trying to hammer you with ideals so much. It's just, like I said, it's great social commentary on the corporate world. Not even really corporate world, but just the work world in general. I mean, how many people... I've seen a meme before, and I think Bronson from Super Gamecraft shared it once, and it really stuck with me, was, going into work in PC time. And I think that's a very appropriate comparison for this show, because that's basically what you're doing, is you're shutting your brain down, your memories down. You're creating a different personality that literally, even Helly went so far as to say, you're not a real person. And so it's almost like they took the NPC meme and made it into a show. And that's what it's about, is being at work as a non-playable character, because that's what these are. They have their memories from the time they go into work and leave work.
That's such a weird analogy that definitely describes the show. But if you think about it in terms of like NPCs know what they're doing internally. Like, their code is written the way that it's written. So they have a function, they know what that function is, and they know they're going to complete it. But they have no idea what the world around them is or why they do what they do. They just know what their code tells them. And that's literally what these people are, is their code tells them what jobs they need to do, what to do. And then they get debugged even they're getting QA tested. That's what Militech did, if you think about it in just terms of like process. Militech did a QA test on Irving to see what would happen. He knew that something could happen, should happen, and might happen, but he still needed to run the functions check. And I think that's that's a really good analogy, but also it changes the whole dynamic of the show, because it could be a little bit in terms of mystery box, but it really feels more along the lines of like the writers are trying to get us to create our own mystery boxes, rather than
they already have a plan.
Yeah, I feel like one of them knows everything that's going on, and it could be something as innocuous as, yeah, we just make dental products, we just cannot let the recipe out. And it doesn't even, that wouldn't be a disappointing end, you know?
No, definitely
Which
not.
is weird, because like, if you think about it, now all we want is more mind games. And so they could literally just have a world of different innocuous companies and products being protected by some super crazy manipulators, which is fun.
Honestly, if this show breaks the fourth wall and basically says that we were the rats in the maze the whole time, I'll be impressed.
I'll say yes.
It's okay. Then so leading back to the rats in the maze, which is basically what Mark and Helly were, literally rats running around in a maze. What is this? I saw this scene and I was like, Hannah's theory was that I guess this is where they send the broken ones. And I don't know.
I don't think so. I think this
baby goats are called kids. So is this like, what's going on here? I want to know what you think is going on here.
This could very much be something similar to what they're doing with Irving. This could be like a 254 or a 259, you know?
Yeah.
Because
or
like what they're
69.
If you remember, oh man, Miss Cobell tells Millicek asks, not Millicek, the other security guy.
Oh yeah.
Michael Comsty as Mr. Grainer. Mr. Grainer asks Cobell what she's doing and like acknowledge it. Like she knew for a fact that they were gonna walk into this room and she's the one that left the door open somehow. So like that rats in the maze thing definitely it just could be, it's not really like an experiment so much as it is a quality test. Like we got to double check that these people are in the right spaces. Each one needs a certain amount of things to be the most productive, and that's why everybody is segregated in the way they are. Like the 4 Macrodot people, they could literally just be the people that work really well in teams of 4 with with constant supervision. Versus like this guy with the
assuming they're doing anything worthwhile at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like they could do literally the most mundane task in the world as long as there's just 4 of them and they have constant supervision with the appearance of being able to be rebellious. Like, and that's like, rather than it being like devious and they're trying to like experiment on these people, it's like they've already mastered social manipulation and they're like choreographing their day-to-day.
Yeah, and it's weird because we have that scene that plays out and it's like they know they're being watched. We've seen the break room, right? We know what the break room is. And yet we think, oh, these guys are, you know, they're reading contraband, they're interacting with other departments, which we're under the assumption you're not supposed to do, but now you can. So obviously they're being watched, but the only time that they've been taken to the break room is when they've tried to leave, when they try to escape. You know, the first time Helly tried to escape and Mark ends up going to the break room on her behalf. Oh, also Super Gamecraft in the chat. So speaking Apple TV shows, when are you going to the real star of that platform, Ted Lasso? We're going to double check and look into that. I've heard good things about it. It's just right now Severance is our big thing, and we're also tracking other stuff. And so we'll definitely do a block on that show, especially probably when it gets closer to its next season premiere. I assume it's still on the air. I don't hear anything about it only being 1 or 2 seasons. So we will be looking into Ted Lasso, absolutely.
Yeah, we're definitely going to discuss it because it is absolutely the star of Apple TV. It's one of the most wholesome sports comedies in the entire universe. Wonderful show, and I cannot wait for season 3.
Well, we will, we'll discuss that as we get closer to that. But in the meantime, with Severance, this show is, like I said, that's why I feel like it's rats in a maze, because they're watching them behave this way. And that's why I almost wonder if the work they're doing really isn't anything except, you know, Carrie Owen brought up the moral gray area, which that can make for a very strong ending if it's executed properly. And I think that's very possible that we'll still get that moral gray area while also dealing with this just being, so when I say it's just rats in a maze, I don't mean to like downplay the show or the significance. It being rats in a maze and trying to use certain mental manipulation and mental abuse to incite or to force conformity is still along the lines of turning out to have a morally gray ending.
And not to mention their depiction of it is still 100% quality. Like, if it is just rats in a maze, this is the most elaborate version of rats in a maze I've ever seen or heard of. So, like, I agree with you. I just keep getting all these thoughts, especially watching this trailer and thinking about what's to come and what it could be. And I came up with this idea about, what if it's rats in a maze and what the information that they're selling is actually the results of these studies, so that other people don't have to be this intense and they can still do some degree of social manipulation. But this is like their way of finding the most effective.
They're trying to take a person that has all of the education and all of the skills of being a person, all of the training, all of the education,
Creativity.
but they're trying to basically take a full-grown adult that has no concept of any other life and then see what they can get away with. That's what I feel is really going on here. And you're right. You're probably right. That's exactly what the caveat is of this show, is that they're basically selling the information to other corporations to say, here is how you can get away with mentally abusing your workers, but also keeping them productive. So, this is what I love about good sci-fi, and that's why I still feel like, this isn't just basic mystery box writing, because they're not writing the show based off of our review, or at least I hope they're not changing episodes based off our review. They've already, it feels like they have an ending planned. A lot of this feels like they already have 2 seasons planned out. Apple TV's already signed off on them, so it sounds like whatever stories they're going to tell, whether or not this story wraps up with these characters and moves on to something else, it remains to be seen. But I love coming back every week. I love talking about this show every week because it really gets you to think. And that's what I said, is like, it's not an insult to the audience. I don't feel like I'm certainly the last person to go full elitist on anybody who doesn't watch Severance. Because if you don't like it, you don't like it, that's fine. But like I said, I think anyone can sit down and watch this show because it's relatable. Everybody has worked a crappy job at least once in their life. And if you haven't, you're probably like in the 2% of humans that haven't done that, which, whatever, that's fine. Everybody's had a job where you just want to turn your brain off and just go into a work mode. This isn't a concept that is like fresh or new. It's new in the sense that nobody's put it on screen before, and they're doing it in such a awesome way that really gets you to think and really gets a lot of thought-provoking questions and analysis going. And so that's what I love about this show is you know what? I think I'm kind of getting to the point, and I don't want to come off as like an apologist or an excuse, pre-excuse the show, because I don't think it's going to be a bad ending. I am confident that this show's, or at the very least, season 1's ending will be satisfying enough. I feel like this is a good show to watch and worth the time. I'm just getting to the point where so much has already happened, so much has already been explored, and we've even discussed a lot on this show that it's just worth watching regardless of how it ends. I'm not saying that as an excuse to have a bad ending. I'm just like, that's how good this show has become, is that, you know what, it actually is kind of worth the ride. And that's where my thoughts are. So I'm enjoying it. It's great. I love the discussion. Any more thoughts before we move on to our next subject?
Yeah, just one quick thing. If we lost our streamers, it's because YouTube's saying that supposedly we are using copyrighted material, which we are not. We are using the already advertised material. But it should come back to us here in a second. Come back to you on YouTube in a second. Twitch seems to still be active and working functionally. So on that, I would just...
why we got slapped with a copyright, because I'm literally just playing stuff that's advertised openly.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure we note that, because we are seeing it and we are experiencing it. We are taking care of it.
That was from the official Apple TV, so they might just have an auto setting on there. But thanks for catching that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, audience. We were discussing Apple TV Severance by using their theme song, and they decided they didn't want us on the air for some reason. So we'll try to see if we can get the YouTube stream back up.
Double checking now. Sorry, Twitch fans. We are in maintenance mode for a moment. Teamwork makes the dream work, though. While we're trying to get this fixed up, I do think Ted Lasso is a phenomenal show. I think Apple TV is definitely taking the time to pay for quality content from its writers.
Yeah.
And I think they were one of the few like platforms that knew they were going to stream a service sooner rather than later. And when they had decided to do that, they I feel like they're the ones that actually planned for it. They went and bought all the writers. They used their multi-billions of trillions of dollars, and they actually took the time to find people that wanted to write new things. And that's why I say Ted Lasso is so phenomenal, is because in terms of sports comedy, it is equal to Severance in its relationship with science fiction. Like, you wouldn't expect it to be sports or comedy because it has very little of either, while simultaneously giving you all of it. Like, feeling like you're learning about a sport you never would have cared about, like soccer, or, as they say in Ted Lasso, football. And looks like we are back on our
All right,
stream.
YouTube's back up and running, which whatever.
We'll
have to look into that because I don't play the unapproved materials. I just play what's approved, unless for some reason they want to pull copyright on the intro, which if that's the case, then fine, I'll just play the trailer from now on. Also
not forget to blame algorithms if it's just overzealous algorithms.
It sounds like overzealous algorithms, which, okay, sorry for the free advertising.
You're a bad algorithm.
Look,
anyway.
I get it. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to take a quick moment to touch on it. Okay, I'm an independent content creator. I probably would feel a little angry about having some of my stuff stolen and sold for free. That's not what we're doing here. We are trying to bring awareness to shows that we like. We are trying to get people excited about shows. And one of the ways that I personally get excited about shows is the theme song. HBO, great marketing campaign, throwing your theme song out there just so people could watch. I don't necessarily want to be too forthright about it, but I did watch it. I did watch the theme by itself on occasion in between episodes, just because it was good. It was an enjoyable piece to watch. So that's one way that I was excited about watching the show. So sorry if I was trying to get people excited to watch Severance by just playing the theme back and forth over and over. Won't happen again.
To any overzealous copyright groups and people that want to say we're infringing copyright, we're literally offering your clients free word-of-mouth discussion about our love for the product. So no, that's not what we're doing.
Switch to one that if we get hit with a copyright, I'm gonna send out an angry.